Welcome back to the Sports Page. Well, as you can see, we are now joined by Chargers beat writer Michael Gehlken. We've missed Michael. I mean, we do these roundtables throughout the season. This is the off season, but we feel like there's enough to talk about with the draft and free agency coming up. And
you talk Chargers 12 months a year.
I do.
13.
We talk Chargers 14. Okay. Okay.
13
Let's start with the biggest news, which is Takeo Spikes. We mentioned this in the last segment. Really not surprising news, not shocking, but still his presence will be missed around the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that they have to replace. I mean, they have to find out who their starting Mike linebacker is. I mean, maybe they feel Jonas Mouton is ready to take the next step. But that'd be pretty difficult to go into an offseason when free agency and draft and just kind of pass up on a guy who could be your guy. And you guys laugh because it's pretty clear.
I don't know if I was on camera for that. I want to make sure that people know I laughed when you said that.
I mean, Jonas Mouton, I can't even, he hasn't played. Last year was really the first season that he played a few games.
And the most indicative thing was last year, week 17, Takeo gets ejected in the second quarter. It's Bront Bird who's taking those reps,
and I don't
not
know Bront
Jonas
Bird's
Mouton.
going to be on this roster.
Right, and Jonas Mouton was a second-round draft pick, so this
I don't like to overplay the leadership part, because sometimes it is overblown, but you're right, they need to find that because it's a young team, and this is indicative of the fact, and they've said it, that they are going younger.
Right.
So
and now
where is it coming from on the defensive side?
It's interesting, the first domino really to fall is Takeo Spikes, the oldest player on this roster. Look at who could be next. I mean, some of these older guys like Garay, 33, Brandon McMichael, 33. I mean, we go in later what that would mean for the cap if they're get rid of some of these guys. But younger Chargers could be. We're talking about that, but the front office and the coaching staff, that could be what we're talking about the roster in a month.
The oldest roster in the NFL. It won't be the youngest this year, but it'll be much younger.
Yeah. And the big thing about this too is, like you said, it clears what, $3 million in cap space.
Correct.
So that's a big move to make. Okay, so how about Demario Williams? I mean, he's going to be a free agent. He filled in for Takeo Spikes last year, but I don't see him really as a starter. Maybe if he's piggybacking with someone else. What do you think?
I think Demario Williams, he's a guy who played really well.
Yes, absolutely.
You could add another touchdown interception to his stats if that wasn't for a penalty in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, yeah.
But, I mean, he's a guy who, he's on the other side of 30, and, in terms of going younger, that wouldn't be a way. But he played at a really high level last year. He's a guy you can put in passing situations, line him up next to Donald Butler and nickel. I think he's a guy where if the Chargers were to bring in, that Mike linebacker who could be the first and second down type of guy like Takeo was, bringing back a Demario or someone in that mold. Yes. They still need, you're kind of starting over at inside linebacker in a way, between losing Demario and as an unrestricted free agent next week, and then Takeo Spikes today.
I like the way that Williams would fit in on this route in terms of a cheap option to take up most of the stats at that position, or the snaps, I should say. Well,
free agency starts next Tuesday. So do you think, are there any good prospects out there that you could see the Chargers taking?
There's some good inside linebackers if we're going to focus there. I think it's just, as a preface, I think anytime we talk defensive, what the Chargers can be investing at, offensive line. They got to get better. Cornerback, there's a lot of areas that are more critical. But, there is a hole there. So if they were, hypothetically, to go that route in free agency, you look at the inside linebacker class, there's two guys that kind of separate themselves. The first, you probably say, it might be 1A, 1B, Donnell Ellerbe. He's a Super Bowl champion, and if you're going to try to link these guys up to San Diego, there's a small town in North Carolina that Melvin Ingram is from, and there's only one other active player in the NFL who's from this small town in Richmond County, and that is Donnell Ellerbe. Those guys run a clinic together.
So that'd be interesting. You say he Super Bowl champion, so maybe bringing in a veteran with playoff experience to try to help the team get back to the playoffs versus bringing in a veteran who had never been to the playoffs to try to get the Chargers back to the playoffs. Wow.
I know, it makes your head spin. What about, though, Melvin Ingram? This is the guy that I think that they're hoping becomes this great pass rusher, but do you think that they would move him into inside linebacker?
They've considered it, but they're not going to do it.
I don't think they can get away with it.
This is the new regime absolutely holds him up as, well, he's going to be a great pass rusher. Well, all right.
They need him to be.
Yes, they do.
You're losing Sean Phillips. I don't expect him to come back. Certainly, maybe if he tests the. I don't even want to leave the door open. It's hard for me to see Sean Phillips back.
It's an interesting question that you asked, though, Andy, because Ingram did play so many spots at South Carolina, and they did consider it. But I'm positive he'll stay outside.
All right, more moves to come. Do we see Antonio Garay being cut here pretty soon? He's due a pretty significant roster bonus.
We've seen it for over a year.
Yes.
Yeah,
we see it.
So once they signed that deal, it was pretty clear, backloaded to your contract. They'll save about $5 million on the cap by getting rid of him. And, it's just the money and the player, the two don't match. I think Garay could be a solid player. He's been great in the community. He's a guy who has been certainly presence here in his 2 seasons, or few seasons that he's been here. But
so that puts them down, gosh, about $15 or $16 million under the cap, right? After you take out your $3 million from Spikes and 5 more, which they've always 15, known. Garay was never going to be on this team for that money.
Right.
Hey, you look at the Chiefs in the last few weeks. I mean, they took Alex Smith, they tagged Brandon Albert, they signed wide receiver Dwayne Bowe, but they also let go of Eric Winston. So I don't know. You still see them taking.
I see him win in the offseason.
I know.
Right.
You see them still taking
a
tackle in the first pick.
Yeah, Jokel. I mean, he's the guy. Eric Fisher. I mean, they go defense too, but certainly by getting rid of the right tackle, I think that sets them up. One would think to go with Jokel there at the first overall pick.
They made some strong moves.
And maybe play him right early. Even Brandon Albert. You didn't tag that guy to keep him to move him to right tackle.
Right.
You see Tyrone Smith, Dallas Cowboy. That he originally was a right tackle, moved him over to left. It's not unprecedented to take a tackle in the first round that high, start him off on one side, move him to the other.
They made some big moves.
That is novel.
All right, well, besides Luke Jokel, Eric Fisher, and Lane Johnson, is there a chance that all 3 of these offensive tackles in the draft are going to be gone by the time the Chargers pick at 11? And what do they do then?
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if the Chargers need they want to go tackle. I mean, if all 3 are gone, I'm sure Jokel's going to be gone. It seems like Fisher and Lane Johnson's stock just increases to soar. This is the perception of his stock. Such an athletic guy, and he's so new to the position, but you kind of just project how good can this guy be. Some think that he could, 10 years down the road, we'll be looking back at this draft class, and yes, Lane Johnson will be the 3rd tackle off the board, but he could have very well been the best one of the bunch. So, if he's gone, I mean, you look at DJ Fluker, a big guy who's really more of a right tackle, and would be a huge reach at pick 11. It's kind of, you almost wish the draft was today or was next week, and free agency
wait till the second round, because there's projects. Lane Johnson's a project too. Now he's a hell of a player from all accounts, but there's projects. I shouldn't say projects. There's guys with risks, but good players available in the second round. So if those 3 are gone, you go another direction, and you go in the second round to a tackle.
Because what is their biggest need?
Offensive line.
That's right. All right.
That's their biggest need on the defense.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well exactly. All right, Michael Gehlken, thank you so much for joining us.
Speak for
we
yourself,
will have
Annie.
a lot more from you as we go further into free agency and then into the draft.
No idea why I'm making Gehlken my enemy. I have no idea.
I know. This guy is a friendly guy. Friendly guy right here. All right. Enough of that. When we come back, we've got a lot of, I believe, USD talk, SDSU talk.
We're doing college baseball,
high school baseball. We'll be there. Come back.